Hello everyone, welcome to the video. This is the first part of my game I'm making for Project of the Month June. A lot of people on TikTok were asking me to make a 3D game, and I was kinda nervous because when you make a game in 3D, there are a lot more things you have to worry about, most of them being physics related. Now I've never really done anything with 3D or physics before, but I'm going to make a 3D game anyway because I have to do it sometime, and now seems like a pretty good time. As far as gameplay goes, my plan for the game is like a 3D version of that mobile game Rider. If you've ever seen that, it's basically just an infinite randomly generated track and you drive a car on it. It's in 2D and there's only one control, so I thought it would be cool to do a similar game but in 3D and with like more controls and stuff like that, I guess. So the first thing I have to do is make a car that can drive around and preferably be fun to control. When I was thinking about how to make a car in Unity, there are two ways that I thought could work. One way is to actually spin the wheels and put a lot of friction on them. That way we can actually move the car forward like a car in the real world does, where the wheels push it. The other way is to kind of cheat a little bit and put no friction on the wheels, just add force straight to the car and let it slide around on the ground. That's the way that I decided to make my car. So first things first, make a cube move around and not fall through the ground. Then the next thing to do is build a car. As I mentioned earlier, I've never really done anything in 3D before, so I kind of just made a bunch of different types of joints and eventually I found them that worked. And then I stuck 5 cubes together and ta-da, it's a car. Now change the movement script a little bit to always add force in the Z direction, and it's a car that drives. Now you may be saying, that doesn't look anything like how a car actually drives, and you are completely right and smarter than I was when I made that turn mechanic. See, what I did was just set my joints on the front wheels so that the wheels could only turn a certain amount before the rest of the car turned with them. But that looks stupid. Also, I forgot to explain this earlier, but this is all the scripting that the front wheels have. It's very simple. Anyway, back to the steering issue. I did a little bit of math and made this fancy equation to tell the car if it should be steering or not based on the rotation of the front wheels, which are controlled by the player. Now you can steer the car, and it looks pretty realistic, other than the car being 5 cubes instead of a car. So what the equation does is it takes the difference between the rotation of the car and the rotation of the front wheels, because the car turns differently depending on how far the wheels are turned. And then it divides that by the speed of the car times how long it's been turning, because cars steer differently depending on how fast they're moving, or at least we want ours to, so that the player doesn't go flying off the map every time they try to turn if they're going fast. And then multiply that by the speed of the car divided by 2, because I forgot. But anyway, it works, I promise. Now the steering for the car is basically done, but there is one more thing to fix. Since we are just adding force in the relative Z direction, when the car steers, it keeps its force from the previous direction it was going, and that makes it slide around, which could be a really fun mechanic, and I might add that in at some point as like a drift or something. But for now, I want the steering to be a little easier to control. So instead of adding relative force, I just have to redirect the force we already have. The only issue is I have no idea how to do that, and I looked it up, but I never got it to work. So instead, I made a couple more equations and just set the velocity for each direction directly. I had a much simpler equation that did the exact same thing, but then I started messing with it, trying to make it so the car can drive normally past 90 and negative 90 degrees. But I never got it working, and I don't need that for my game anyway. But if you are trying to make your own car, then you're probably going to need a better solution. All that this equation does is take the x rotation of the car and convert it from a fraction of 90 to an equal fraction of the total speed. Then do the same thing for the y rotation. Subtract both of those from the speed to get the z value. And after that, we just plug those values in as velocity and the car steers pretty precisely. Oh, and here's a bit of code I added to make the car stop faster if the player isn't pressing the gas. The next thing on the to-do list is to make the car an actual car instead of just 5 cubes. So I downloaded Blender and watched half a YouTube tutorial, and an hour later I ended up with this simplistic truck. Nice. Changing from an almost flat object to this truck did pose a small issue, and that was that when force was added to it, it would fall over. But this had a super easy solution, which was to just change the center of gravity to the bottom of the car. Now that the car works, it's time to start working on the hardest part of this project. I think I'm probably not the only one who spends most of my time in car games, doing flips and stuff like that. That's what makes games like Rocket League so fun. So of course I had to add some aero controls to my game. The thing that makes this so difficult is a little thing called gimbal lock. If you don't know what that is, it's basically where if two of the rotation axes lock onto the same track, it makes everything break. I don't want to spend a lot of time explaining it, but if you want to know more, there's a link to a whole video about it in the description. The main way to get around this is there are two types of rotation that we can use. Euler, which is the one that I was using, and Quaternion, which is not affected by gimbal lock. It seems like a really simple solution, but unfortunately it's not. The issue with Quaternions is that they return a number between 0 and 1 instead of the rotation in degrees. So long story short, I have to find a different way to get around that. I'm gonna skip straight to when my solution actually finally worked, because I have 4 days worth of failed attempts, and this video can't go on forever. But what I ended up doing is creating a separate game object which has 4 aerial stabilizers connected to it, and they rotate on the X and Z axes, controlled by the arrow keys. Then with this equation, I took the rotation of that game object and multiplied it by a custom Quaternion, which just holds rotation as the Y axis. By the way, multiplying Quaternions is the same as adding up the values inside. After setting the car's rotation to that, we now officially have working aerial controls, and have now made a working car in Unity. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed. Make sure to subscribe and follow my other socials for more game dev content.